people that weren't able to dial in today. We welcome your questions on today's webinar, and at the end we're going to have a bit of a Q&A session. So there's two ways that you can ask questions today. There's a Q&A function in the WebEx, which you should hopefully see on the right-hand side. So you can type your questions in there at any point in time during the webinar, and then we will get to those at the end. Then also at the end, we're going to unmute everyone so you can also ask questions verbally to any of the presenters. So those are the two ways that you're going to be able to ask questions today. The other thing to note is that we're going to be making the slides available after the webinar, so there's no need to take print screens or pictures. We will be sure to send those around after the webinar to yourselves and also anyone else who registered but couldn't make it. So just in terms of the agenda, which you can hopefully see on the screen now, session's due to run for approximately an hour. I'm going to give a bit of an overview of ENA and network innovation funding within our members. I'm then going to pass over to my colleagues Richard and Ian, who are the chairs of the gas innovation and electricity innovation groups respectively, who are going to talk through the call for ideas and also the governance arrangements, what's required. And then, as I said at the end, we're going to open it up to the Q&A. So we'll take some of those written Q&A and also if you want to talk as well, you can verbally talk, we'll unmute you. So without further ado, I think we'll get started. So just as a really brief introduction to ENA, ENA is the trade association for the gas and electricity networks in the UK and Ireland at both transmission and distribution. So we represent effectively the wires and pipes of the energy industry, and ENA undertakes a range of different functions for its members. We look at policy and regulatory impacts. We work on strategies with our members, including the innovation strategy, which we'll talk about today. We offer a technical service to our members, so we look at engineering standards, health and safety. We also provide communications function. We work in Europe. So we provide a range of different services for our networks, and the overarching goal is to try and bring all our networks together, drive consistency across the country, and ensure that the energy transition happens in a way that's best for customers. So in terms of who our members are, on the screen now I've got the electricity members. So on the left-hand side there you've got the distribution networks, or the DNOs. On the right-hand side you've got the transmission owners. We also have National Grid as the electricity system operator as a member. And it's key to note that the call for ideas today is specifically referring to the Great Britain members, because they are the ones regulated under Ofgem, where we get the innovation funding. On the screen now, we've got the gas members. So on the left-hand side, we've got the gas distribution networks, the GDNs. And on the right-hand side, we've got the transmission networks. And similarly for the gas networks, today we're specifically referring to ideas for the Great Britain members. So our Great Britain members are regulated by Ofgem. And under Ofgem, they are regulated under a particular framework called RIIO. And under that framework, they have access to two types of innovation funding. We have the Network Innovation Allowance and the Network Innovation Competition. The Network Innovation Allowance is an allowance that is available to members throughout the year. The amount is a certain percentage of their annual turnover, and these projects are typically smaller scale projects. We then have the Network Innovation Competition, which is what the purpose of today's call is for. This is for larger projects, typically above around about £2 million. And the networks effectively are in competition to get access to this funding. And later on, we will describe exactly how much funding is available, what the process is for accessing it, and what the timelines are for that. Just as a bit of an aside, the reason why Ofgem supports innovation and the reason why our members are so keen on it is because of the amount of benefits that it can drive for our customers. So not only is it helping with the energy transition, but actually it can really help from a cost perspective as well. So with the previous innovation funding mechanism, the LCNF, which was a similar type of mechanism, the benefits were around £1 billion and the cost was only a third of that. So there's real benefits for customers with innovation. And that's why we want new ideas, and we want to ensure that we get those ideas from the likes of yourselves so that we can ensure that our customers can see those benefits. So just before I pass over to Richard, in terms of how you can get involved with ENA and with this innovation funding, first of all, we have a Smarter Networks portal. The website's on the screen there. That is effectively a database with all of the innovation projects that have ever occurred under the network. So I think the number on the screen is slightly out of date there. There's over 1,400 projects in that portal now, and all of the learnings and outputs of those projects are available and publicly available for free. So I do recommend that you have a look at this portal to see what has been done before, because obviously we're looking for new innovation ideas. We're not looking at copying previous projects effectively. So before you pitch any idea to us, make sure you have a look in there to understand what's already happened. We then have the Network Innovation Collaboration Portal. Again, the website's there on the screen. This is a tool that allows a two-way communication between yourselves and networks. It allows you to pitch your ideas to networks, and it also allows you to receive calls for ideas from networks, which could be for specific challenges or projects that they're looking for help on, or it could be, for example, for the joint Network Innovation Collaboration call today, which is what today is about. We will put that call out through this portal. Again, it's free to sign up to and use. And finally, we have our Low Carbon Networks and Innovation Conference in Glasgow on the 30th and 31st of October this year, where we demonstrate the outputs from our innovation projects. The gas networks had theirs at Utility Week, so they've already had theirs earlier this year, and they will be doing it again next year. So do get involved in our annual dissemination conferences. It's also key to note that if you sign up to the portals, you'll hear about our other dissemination events, which we run for certain projects across the year. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Richard, who's going to introduce today's call for ideas.
Yeah, thanks, Randolph. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so Richard Haines, I'm Head of Innovation at Northern Gas Networks and the current Chair for the Gas Innovation Governance Group. So one thing what I'm going to talk about this morning is actually the areas that we're going to look to do, but to start off really with the opportunity. The key point here for us is that actually the goal obviously of this webinar and actually the opportunity to launch a joint call for ideas is to actually explore opportunities for collaboration between gas and electricity networks to actually open up here with the key driver actually. We're actually looking to invite third parties to come to work with us to actually explore high quality transformational projects with the ultimate objective that they deliver value for money for customers. So these projects obviously we're looking at significant disruptive innovation that actually delivers significant change and move towards our future energy systems transition. So from a funding perspective, in total there's £90 million worth of funding available from the Network Innovation Competition annually. As this comes through, this comes out in actually two separate buckets, which is 20 million that's available through the Gas Network Innovation Competition and 70 that's available with the Electricity Network Innovation Competition. So whilst they are two discrete buckets, the whole purpose of this joint call for innovation is that we're actually looking to explore opportunities to collaborate with wider whole system solutions. So opportunities where we can have gas and electricity networks working together on collaborative joint projects. So the areas that we're looking to explore, it has to be new, it's innovative, and we're looking at low carbon solutions as our key priority area. So as part of this process, what we'll look to do is evaluate submissions. And then when we evaluate submissions, go through some key criteria, but then work to support the highest scoring submissions, get to a point where they're ready for submission, obviously presentation through to Ofgem. Given the fact the key point here is that this is a competition where we're looking to obviously submit bids to win and secure funding. So across to the next slide. So the challenge that we've got is actually that what we know is this slide obviously represents the fact that we've got a significantly changing landscape when we look at the energy networks. And what we know is actually the future changing energy landscape presents us with significant challenges, but a lot of opportunities for us to explore innovation further. What we know is actually the challenge that we've had, that was the decarbonisation challenge, is now enshrined in law, and it's essential that we work together and actually invite wider third parties and innovators to come and actually help us achieve the target that's net zero. So it's essential that we open and explore with wider third parties. So the key point, just to reinforce this, so we're sat here as gas and electricity networks with two separate innovation competitions. However, what we're really hoping for here is that opportunities for companies to come in and actually present whole system solutions, because this is equally key. And if you look at the infographic that's represented on the picture, so this is a perfect example of how what we want to do is explore the end-to-end energy solution to try and explore how both gas and electricity can help play a part in a net zero future. So the focus areas for the call. Let me just catch up with the animations. So the focus areas for the call are really, they basically come in three key buckets, and information on this can actually be found supplementary within the electricity network innovation strategy and the gas network innovation strategy, links of which are embedded within the slides, so they're going to be available after the call, but they're also available for download on the ENA website. So three key areas: electricity, whole energy system, and gas. Within there, there's a list of things that are covered off in detail within the strategy documents that we've worked collaboratively with stakeholders to actually fully embed what our key aims and areas are that we need to work on. But as Randolph said when we opened up the call, is that the network innovation competition is looking at more transformational, disruptive projects. And the key point here is our primary focus is longer term disruptive innovation, and one that's going to support actually a future moving and energy systems transition. So please take time to have a look at the information that's contained within the network innovation strategies for both electricity and gas, and actually consider how they might work and actually pull together for whole energy system solutions, because just to reinstate the point, that's a real area of focus for us. And finally, just to cover off, so the governance requirements are going to be covered off shortly by Ian as we progress through the webinar. But the key point here for us is that actually we're looking for projects really that go through and they meet the network innovation competition governance criteria, which is a real key point, because as part of this is that this will be some joint work that needs to come together and ultimately leads to a submission and presentation to Ofgem. So we're looking at transformational innovation projects. So as Randolph stated earlier, over £2 million in budget and projects that cover multiple years, and obviously by definition are transformational. So in terms of actually the way that we'll work, so we're looking, there's a requirement obviously for a funding contribution up to 10% of the total project cost. So that's something that can be explored as part of obviously some successful progression through this process, and actually we'll look to explore that, but that could be a mixture of cash or benefit in kind through obviously other technology or information that's available. All projects, goes without saying, must be novel and genuine innovation. And the key part of the network innovation competition is that we pick up and that we build on existing learning to demonstrate actually how we can take things all the way through the technology readiness levels to deliver big demonstrator projects. Embedded within the right-hand side of this slide, there are two links. So first of all, it's the guidance document, how we can walk you through, and second to that is the Google form. So this is the opportunity on how you can actually put your ideas through to us to allow us to undertake this evaluation. And obviously as part of that, there's going to be a selection process. So within there, I'll pass you across to Ian. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. So as part of putting this webinar together, putting this call out, we want to ensure that we can make this funding that we have available as open to everyone as we can. So we want to give everyone an equal opportunity to be able to come and get access to develop ideas that are relevant, are compliant with the governance, to be able to transform our industry and ultimately to deliver benefits to network customers. And we want to maximise your chances of success at getting hold of that money. We don't want to we don't want to hide things. We don't want to be closed. We want to be able to engage with you as you go through and develop this process. So please come and see us at LCNI if you've got questions. But ultimately, we want to make sure that you don't waste your time by developing an idea, scoping it out, filling in forms, and then finding out that it's not relevant. So 2 links on the right are to the governance documents, and there is a tick box in the Google form if you put in that says, "Have you read it?" Please do read it. They're quite long, so if you're looking for a cross-sector project, there's a couple of hours of reading in there. But actually, there's some really important content. I've pulled out a couple of specific items here. One is on the IPR requirements of the governance. They're not particularly onerous, we don't think, but actually we would look for everyone who submits an idea through this process to be able to comply with those IPR requirements. If that's going to pose you a problem, please come and talk to us in advance, and we're happy to talk through them as we go. Also, there are a few little nuggets in terms of the project delivery that end up often getting written into project contracts. Some stuff around funding clawback and risk that are included in Section 8 in the governance in the project delivery arrangements. It may seem a long way away from the start, but actually it's worth considering, because ultimately we want you guys to pitch great ideas to us. We want to be able to work with the best of those ideas and actually deliver amazing projects that have outputs that deliver benefits to our customers. So I'm going to talk through 3 different sets of eligibility criteria, initially the direct impact test, then those that are in the initial submission performer, the ISP, and then those that are in the full submission performer, the FSP. And the timelines for those will become clear shortly. So the first requirement is that all NIC projects must have a direct impact on the network in terms of our actual network assets or our operations. And that means actually it must change what we do. Richard talked about transformational. Actually, there has to be a transformational element of what it is. It can't just be something that sits on the side and has no impact with our network. Entirely within a customer's premise or within a generating site, and actually doesn't really impact or change how the networks are operated, then I'm afraid it's not going to be eligible for this call. And that's Ofgem's rule. In terms of new or novelty, there are 4 specific criteria around novelty that a technology must fit in. And actually, under the direct impact, actually, is it a new equipment? Is it a new way of operating existing equipment, including software? Or is it a new way of operating our businesses? Or potentially a new set of commercial contracts that allow us to relate and engage with people in different ways. There are a number of different ways in which you can work this out, but actually ultimately, if the idea doesn't directly engage with our networks, then I'm afraid it's not going to be compliant with the governance. The next set of criteria that will come through in the ISP test expand on that and actually look at, these are the things that Ofgem are asking for, Ofgem are looking for from different projects. So firstly, how green is it? Does it accelerate the development of a low carbon energy sector? Does it enable more low carbon technologies to be connected? Does it enable the decarbonisation of gas? And actually deliver environmental benefits to customers and to our wider society. So the aim of the fund has this environmental link, this environmental heart to it, to actually be able to meet ultimately now the road to zero in 2050 a requirement from government to be actually deliver that environmental benefit. Also, does it have the potential, if successful, to deliver financial benefits to customers? Is it something that ultimately, if network customers who ultimately fund the network innovation competition through the use of system charges get a return on their investment? Does it deliver net benefits to them if it's proved successful and rolled out across our businesses? either electricity or gas or both. So these are key elements to the main criteria that Ofgem have put in place and that we support, because ultimately as businesses we want to be able to keep the lights on, to keep the heat on at low cost to our customer, and ensuring that we can deliver that for everyone. The second criteria is value for money, and that's actually as a project as a whole and as the solutions that the project enables, do they represent good value? And ultimately, are there better or cheaper ways of doing it? It has are all the partners that have come into the project providing an appropriate contribution commensurate with the benefit that they're going to see out at the end. And it's tested in a number of ways and expanded upon in the governance document. The third item is, does it create knowledge or new knowledge that can be shared across the energy networks in GB, or opportunities for a significant rollout? Is it something that actually, yeah, it's been done before, we know how it works, it's not innovative, it's not new, or something that is actually new and different and distinct in some way that creates an innovative or transformational opportunity? And actually, what opportunity is it? What is the scale of the opportunity? Is it something that actually, if it's proven successful, it will be deployed once, and that's it? I think that actually, if it's successful, we'll be able to roll out across a number of different areas within either gas or electricity networks, and actually support a significant return on investment to customers. And again, the fourth point is it innovative? Is it new? Is there a level of risk associated with it? Or ultimately, the counterfactual is it something that we should just be getting on and doing? And that's a test to say, how likely or how unlikely is it that this thing is going to succeed? What is the level of risk that we're taking on? And as you'll see if you read through the governance, that development is defined as TRL 4 to 6 and demonstration TRL 7 to 9. And so actually, if you've used the technology readiness levels, or TRLs, that'll give you a flavour for where the NIC is looking. And if your solution is already proven and demonstrated, and actually there is no risk, we should just be buying it off the shelf to deliver benefits to our customers, then it's probably not really suitable for the NIC. But actually, you should be coming and talking to us anyway and selling it to us, and we should be buying it if it's that good and it delivers those benefits. Mission Performer later on through the application process to Ofgem adds a couple of other criteria in terms of eligibility for the funding. The first of those is the involvement of other project partners and external funding. It's actually who's involved in this project. Is it just one person going it alone, or is it actually a group, a collaborative approach that actually demonstrates both engagement with industry, but also interest from multiple network stakeholders? And actually, where's the money coming from? Who's bringing in what proportion of funding to the project? That actually people are prepared to invest in, put their skin in the game because they believe that their solution is worthwhile, or is it something where someone is saying, actually, I don't want to take any risk in this. I want to be entirely funded as what I'm doing for my involvement, for my difficulty here. The second one is around relevance and around timing. And usually the question on this is, why now? Why is this something that hasn't been done before? Why is this something that we're looking to do now as opposed to in 2 or 4 years' time? And actually, that's an understanding of what's going on in the wider industry transformation, the transitions that are happening in electricity towards distribution system operator or other shifts, and the changes within gas looking towards decarbonisation. Or actually, is it that there's something that would be ideal to deploy as soon as possible, but the technology hasn't been ready until now? There are a number of different ways of answering that question. requirement is actually the demonstration of a robust methodology and that the project is ready to implement. Actually, how confident are you in terms of the preparations that you've put in place that you can appropriately test, appropriately demonstrate the success of the project? Sorry, the success of any solutions that you are working on in the project. And how confident are you that when Ofgem ultimately say yes, you can have access to the funding, that actually you can get this off the ground and up and running in a good time? But also, how much confidence can you give Ofgem and their expert panel that if the solutions are proved successful in the project, the networks and the wider industry will have the confidence to roll out these solutions? How confident are they that any questions that need answering will be answered as part of the project, ready to roll out to business as usual at the end? I'm aware that's quite a long list and quite a long document, but please take note of them, have a read, have a think, because we want to make sure that as far as possible the ideas that come in are eligible. We don't want to waste your time. We want to make the most of it. But equally, if you've got great ideas, we really want to hear them. We really want to be able to investigate and test and trial transformative solutions that will change our business and our businesses and our industry. So what's the timeline going forward? The top row here is the proposal for the NIC call that's hosted by the ENA, and actually it's opened on the 16th of September. Those of you listening live are here on the 25th, the information webinar. And I'll point out that on the 30th, 31st of October is the Low Carbon Networks and Innovation Conference, LC&I conference. We will all be there, electricity and gas, even though the gas networks won't be presenting on any of the project information they've developed. So we will all be there. Please come and talk to us if you've got questions. And then deliberately set a week after that conference completes, on the 8th of November, the call for ideas will close. We're not intending on extending that because there's a very, very tight timeline afterwards for us to review your submissions against the criteria that we've advertised in the call, ultimately reflecting the NIC eligibility criteria. And then we will shortlist the top scoring proposals and inform you by the 25th of November that those who are on the top of the list, and invite you to pitch on between the 3rd and the 5th of December to us. And that will be a short presentation, and then the opportunity for us to question you, to dig into the depths of what you've proposed and try and understand the value and the benefits that it can bring to our customers. And we've committed that by the 20th of December for Christmas, whether it's a good or a bad present, we'll let everyone know those which projects we would like to support to take forward. Actually, we're willing to commit that everyone around the room is going to support at least one proposal. So all of the electricity networks and all of the gas networks will support at least one proposal into the call for Ofgem to ISP. It's not a pitch your idea and then we won't do anything about it. The good ideas, we will. That's a commitment that we've made, and we will stand by. But this is only the preparation line. Actually, this is about setting ourselves up for success for when we pitch these proposals to Ofgem and their expert panel. And the timeline for the call actually is set to allow us enough time to work with you to help you to develop both compliant and hopefully successful proposals to go through Ofgem's competition. So through January and March, you develop the proposal, scope it out a bit more, and prepare the initial submission pro forma, which is a 10-page document that is early compliance with the top criteria we discussed earlier, and submitted to Ofgem typically early April. And then Ofgem have that opportunity to review those proposals for compliance and then inform us whether we are able to proceed with those through to the full submission. The full submission document that's due typically in July is not a 5-minute piece of work. There's a 100-page page limit, but actually there are specific requirements in terms of what you've got to put in that document. Aside from demonstrating that you can meet the eligibility criteria, you've also got to have an element of detail of what it is that you're going to do, so test and trial and demonstrate the solutions proposed, but also what your business case is and actually the benefits arising from it, how you communicate those benefits to the wider industry, and some requirement and some details on how you have set up your project and your project team, such that if funded, you are likely to be able to deliver successfully. And there's detailed requirements on those, particularly the business case includes estimating financial, carbon and for electricity networks capacity benefits through to 2050, based on the successful rollout of the solutions of the project. It's not a 5-minute piece of work to put that together. And I should also state clearly that as networks, this is effort that we put in off our own back and at our own cost to develop these proposals. And that is something that we would expect of people who are pitching in. So please do not present the best idea and then come to us in December and say, actually, can you give us some money to develop the full submission document? I'm sorry, that's not something that we are prepared to do. For projects of this scale, you have to be able to sustain your own business and sustain the effort involved to develop these proposals. We know that provides a barrier to entry to certain smaller organisations. And so we will signpost the other opportunities for innovation funding that we have available, and also other funding mechanisms that there are, as Randolph has described earlier, to actually come and innovate with us in a different way. But this is effectively a barrier that is in place as part of the competition. We're not funded, and so we don't expect people who are pitching ideas to be funded by us to develop these proposals either. So once that full submission document has gone in July, there is then a question and answer process where Ofgem and their appointed expert panel have the opportunity to ask us questions for clarification or further expansion on the full submission document. And there are 2 opportunities to present to them to actually pitch the idea and to answer key questions to help confirm the eligibility of the project and actually the value and the benefit that it will provide to customers. And then in November, the decision will be announced as to whether or not funding has been awarded. So for clarity around this timeline, what you are presenting to us, hopefully in terms of submitting ideas through October and early November and presenting to us in December 2019, we will not know whether there is funding available until November 2020. We will not be able to start at the earliest before January 2021. So that is a function of the mechanism. And actually that is how the governance criteria work. For those of you who are interested, I and several others of the network colleagues were in with Ofgem last week doing the second presentation on the pitches for the proposals that came in as part of the Ofgem's process this year. We're waiting until November to get those results and looking to kick off the projects next year in parallel with going through this bid opportunity. So I'm going to hand back to Randolph, who's going to close the close the session and look at asking if you've got any questions that you would like us to answer.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ian and Richard. So we've got a couple of questions come through on the WebEx. Also going to open it up to verbal questions in a minute, but just before we answer those, I think it might be useful if you just really quickly describe an example of an NIC project that you've run, to give an example of what sort of project happens under this competition, and also what the sort of scale is for that project.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to cover that off, Randolph. So one of the projects that we've got, that it's a live project currently, and it's a collaboration project that we're currently working with in partnership. It's a project led by Cadent, and it's the High Deploy project, the network innovation competition. So this is all around the concept of blended hydrogen within obviously live gas networks currently. So this started from obviously a small scale short duration NIA project called High Start that provided the research to allow us to move across, and it basically led across to the High Deploy consortium was established, which is several organisations that can provide specific skill sets to allow us to progress through forward, really to help provide essential information towards a decarbonised future. That's led on to two successful NIC submissions and NIC projects that have been awarded. So very quickly for these two projects, High Deploy 1, that's established at Keele University, and this is obviously, again, Cadent and NGN working together from a size and scale. So this is circa £10 million worth of funding that's been awarded over a 3-year project. Several organisations involved as part of the consortium, but this is basically providing essential evidence to prove that we can inject up to 20% blended hydrogen into a private network that's owned and operated up at Keele University. There was a successful second bid that went in for that, saying actually to build upon from High Deploy 1, which is High Deploy 2, and this is basically to do live trials on a public network. So as part of that, again, led by Cadent, obviously working in partnership with the consortium, Northern Gas Networks being one of the companies where we're working in collaboration. This is even larger in scale, so this is two live public trials that will take place, both in NGN's network and in Cadent's network. And this is really to inject, upon successful completion of High Deploy 1, to inject up to 20% blended hydrogen into live networks as we sit today, obviously that directly impacts our networks and our customers. So all of this is all around providing essential evidence, but from a cost and scale from High Deploy 2, that's £15 million over 4 years. So in total, the concept of moving us from for a current looking at with natural gas flowing through to move towards providing essential evidence to policymakers to say, actually, let's move in towards a blended future. Actually, that's basically, it's 7 years worth of NIC projects with a £25 million cost. So this is significant, transformational, and hence the points that Ian covered there. There's a lot of detail, a lot of effort required to put these network innovation competitions together, but the size of the prize is significant. So we're really, really open to ambitious ideas.
Great, thanks, Richard. Ian, do you have an example?
Yeah, I'd like to share one, maybe two, but we'll see how we go. So firstly, I'd like to share the Optimise Prime project that we run actually in response to an idea that came into a similar call for proposals that we ran ourselves in the back end of 2017 for bids that were submitted in 2018. Optimise Prime is looking to deliver a comprehensive understanding of the impact that electrification of commercial vehicles will have on the distribution networks. So looking at vans and private hire vehicles. It explores the opportunities to minimise this impact by optimising network and charging infrastructure, providing network services, and is going to test technical and commercial solutions to save customers money. And ultimately, we estimate that being over £200 million of savings by 2030. So the project runs for about three and a bit years, started early this year, 2019, and received over £16 million worth of funding from the Electricity NIC. As one example, on the smaller end, actually, there's a project that we are in the middle of called Powerful CB. That we bid for a few years ago to develop a novel piece of technology that reduces the fault level at some of our main substations by effectively splitting the network under fault conditions by using a new type of extremely fast circuit breaker. Actually, it's a smaller project. It's only about £7 million from memory to actually develop and demonstrate a specific piece of technology. So there's two different types of project that we put in, slightly different scales, but to give you a feel for what a NIC project is about.
Okay, thanks, guys. So I think we'll go to some of the questions from the WebEx now. So the first one's come from John. He says, are the eligibility requirements GB specific or global, i.e. would a proposed innovation be eligible if it is under trial / in operation in another global market, but not yet in GB?
So thank you for the question, John. It depends is the answer. So in general, yes, novel in GB is the requirement. However, the question then gets asked, why is GB different from where it's being trialled? And so actually, if something is trialled and proven elsewhere, what is then the risk, or what are the challenges associated with bringing it into this country and operating on our networks? And actually, that's often a very real risk, and there are several projects where we have looked at doing exactly that. So that doesn't remove the eligibility, but definitely there are some different questions that you have to ask in that case.
Yeah, I'll just chip in to support that point as well. Is that so I completely agree with what Ian said there. If you take the example that I just given around high deploy, across the world and actually wide scale across Europe, blended hydrogen exists currently. It just doesn't in Great Britain. So the key point here is actually to get to a point where we can inform policymakers and standards. We actually need to provide essential evidence. So not just obviously reference something that's been done elsewhere. It's actually to do that, and obviously that's met the eligibility criteria.
Great, thanks, guys. So the next question comes from Eamon. I'd like to understand what the most successful technology readiness level range is for a project to address.
Goodness. Thank you for the question, Eamon. I would suggest between 4 and 9.
Yeah. So there were no immediate volunteers to answer that one, Eamon, so that's a fantastic question. So I actually think it all really depends actually upon any information, because obviously this is actually building on previous learning. So I think the key point, the further it gets closer towards TRL 9, so the closer to something is, it's closer to near to market ready, the less there's a need to provide essential evidence. Part of this is a demonstrator project, but it's really, if there's already information that's available that's taken us up towards the higher end of the TRL, it's something that's close and ready for commercialisation already, and is that change transformational and disruptive, or is this part of incremental? Not entirely certain if that fully answers the question, but I think the key point here is that this is probably on a project by project basis that we need to sit and have a look at.
I would also recommend reading the joint innovation strategies, both the gas and electricity one, because in there we do identify areas where we believe there hasn't been much innovation activity and where we want there to be a focus on going forward. So I would definitely recommend reading those before submitting.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Absolutely. But yeah, from our experience as a company, we've had successful bids developing technologies from TRL 5 upwards and also from TRL 7 upwards through the Network Innovation Competition funding. So there's both. But if you are below TRL 4-5, then it's definitely not for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next question is slightly easier. Are the details of the projects in the current process, i.e. those which are being presented to Ofgem at the moment, visible on the portal?
So thank you for the question. No, they are not, because they are not live projects at this stage. However, Ofgem do publish the successful initial submission performers on their website. Mm-hmm. So if you search for Ofgem NIC, then you will quite quickly find some ISPs on their website that you can take a look through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Frank, did I hear that you wanted to chip in there?
I was just going to say that they're on the ISPs are on there, and they will be published after the decision in a couple of weeks, hopefully.
So to introduce Frank Clifton is the Innovation Manager for Scottish and Southern Energy Networks, and is joining us on the line, and yeah, he's entirely correct.
Okay, fantastic. So that is all of the questions that have come through on the WebEx so far. Please feel free to keep adding questions to that. Would anyone like to ask a question verbally? We've unmuted all of you, so you can. Is someone trying to ask a question? It's quite a lot of background noise. Okay, I'm sorry. If someone was trying to ask a question, then we couldn't quite hear you, so maybe type it into the WebEx, it might be easier. Does anyone else want to ask a question verbally? Okay, well, we haven't got any other questions coming through. Do any of the innovation managers have any other points they would like to raise, or tidbits that might help the people putting bids in? One question that I probably have that might help people is we've got obviously got the Google form where we're asking people to provide a range of different details. How much detail are we looking for in the answers to those questions, and how much time should people be spending on this initial call for ideas?
Yeah, I know certainly for me that when we've looked at this in previous years, and the things that have certainly come through to us directly is that the more short and concise your submission can be, is that actually it can really quickly identify what the size of the opportunity is. So for me, I'd quite like to think that actually, as far as if somebody's got any questions, this is a long and very complex process that needs quite a lot of effort. If people have got questions at this particular point in time, then actually I'd please point them in our direction and open up and ask us. As far as the submission for the Google form goes, actually, if you've got some ideas, please ensure that you can actually signpost that as gas, electric, or whole energy systems specifically. So that allows us then to actually make sure, because there's quite a lot of time and effort required for all the gas and electricity companies to sit and evaluate all these proposals. So success previously has looked for companies where we've actually very, very quickly we can understand exactly, so what's your proposal, what's the proposition, and how will that provide benefit to obviously to the networks and obviously to energy customers in Great Britain.
Can I add one more thing, Randolph? And that's about that benefit piece. It's the business case is probably the most important thing in that Google form. How does this benefit network customers? And it's that network customer benefit, which I think is absolutely crucial to any of these things being successful. Because when it comes to evaluation, that's usually the bit that gets most scrutiny. If we've got a good business case, then we've got probably the best chance of success. So I think having that understood and thought through before we start is going to avoid a lot of wasted effort from everyone. I think that's the most critical part of this, is to see where that business case is going to be. How's it going to change what we do, and how's that going to benefit our customers by improving efficiency, improving reliability, or reducing cost. I think that's it.
Yeah, good point, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Just on if you do have queries or want to clarify something, there is an email that you can contact. It's NIC @energynetworks.org. So you can send through your queries to one of us, or probably best to go to that email and then we'll share it with everyone. Those can be queries about the call itself and general quick queries, or they could be queries about specific networks. And we will make sure that we forward it on if there's specific questions for specific networks. We've just had another question come through on the WebEx, so I'll ask that to the guys now. That's from Thomas. Are we expecting the networks to issue their own calls for ideas in addition to the ENA call? So I can probably have a first crack at that. The short answer is it depends on the network. So some of the networks rely on the ENA call for ideas, and they're happy to take ideas through us. And if there's specific areas of the country that you want to target a project on, you can just indicate that in the Google form as to which area of the country it's targeted. But some networks have specific areas that are specific to their networks that they need specific help on. So some will run their own calls. And if you sign up to our Network Innovation Collaboration portal, anyone who's got a specific call from their own network will publish it out through that portal as well. So you'll get the call, both the generic ENA call, but also any specific calls from networks through that portal. So strongly encourage you to sign up to that. If you have any issues signing up, just give us a shout.
I think I'd add to that point as well, Randolph, that for me, the whole point of obviously this joint call is to actually open up for opportunities to people coming. Actually, if you've got opportunities for gas, electricity, or whole energy systems proposals, send them through there. We do have, obviously, we have discussions that take place where we might have actually regional-based discussions with local organisations around things that are very specific to us. However, we know from last year's submission there are some technologies that are actually regional agnostic. It doesn't particularly make a difference where you are. Actually, whole systems are whole systems, and there's opportunities for opening this up from a much wider piece. But certainly from my own point, I'd encourage people actively to use this as an avenue to actually gain access to all networks.
Yeah. And when we've taken the feedback as networks, actually it can be confusing as to who you have to pitch into. If we're all basically asking very similar questions at a very similar time, it makes much more sense and saves everyone a lot of effort if we do it all together. And so that's feedback that we've taken on board. And so the majority of the networks are just, for NIC are just doing this one call. For NIA calls, and different people have different individual networks have approaches to gathering ideas for their NIA, Network Innovation Allowance projects. But for the NIC, if you've got an idea, pitch it here.
Yeah. The other thing that I just wanted to flag up, which is related to this call, is the innovation strategies, which Richard talked about earlier, were published in March 2018. We're going to be publishing an update to those strategies in March 2020, March next year. So after the joint NIC call, we're going to be running a series of stakeholder workshops and consultations on what's required in the updates to those strategies. So we'll also be reaching out to you guys when it comes to stakeholder engagement for updating those strategies. So that's just something to note that's all coming up, and that will help set the target for NIC calls in further years as well. We haven't had any more questions come in on the WebEx. Were there any final questions on the phone? And if not, I think we'll close the session. Any final questions? Nope. Okay, well, just to round out, first of all, I just want to thank you for joining. I hope you found it useful. Obviously, if there's any follow-up questions, let us know. As I also mentioned, we'll be circulating the slides after the event and putting the recording for this up. So you can feel free to pass this recording on to others. And finally, I just want to thank my team here at ENA and also Ian and Richard for helping with the presentation here. And hopefully we'll see you all at LC&I at the end of October. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.